of the Caribbean, CARICOM, and Ralph Gonsalves visited Venezuela, who is the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And exactly a year afterward, I have the honor to share with Cliff Scott and the musicians that came to bring and share the music from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I don't know if it is fate or destiny, but Venezuela is here, joined with St. Vincent and the Grenadines, from whom we have received their support in multiple occasions through their prime minister and their people. And I know they will always be with us because Venezuela has fostered the exchange community unity with the Caribbean. There are some linguistic obstacles that prevent us to continue promoting and uniting ourselves, but we have continued in our efforts in order to foster that unity. So the issue we will address today is intellectuality in the Caribbean. And instead of mentioning important figures of ideas and Caribbean intellectuality, I would like to address it by using poetry, as I did back then when we celebrated CARICOM. So I would like to read a poem from a female Caribbean poet. She's 74 years old today, who's called Meryl Collins. I would like you to pay close attention to these poems because they will explain what we as intellectual, cultural experts and poets must look after in order to achieve the Caribbean unity that's so hard to achieve because we don't focus on the aspects that unite us. We usually focus on the fact that we have different languages, different populations. Ours have different ethnical aspects that make us different from the Anglo Caribbean, which is mainly of black race. But that colonial past unite us. The colonial past defined and determined certain modes of resistance that unite us. So we must focus ourselves on the fact that the Caribbean starts with that colonialism and with the response our peoples gave to that colonialism. How come that we are anti-imperialists? And that fact moves our awareness and courage, knowing that we have oppression over us and the attempt to subjugate the Caribbean. Because there are 1,000 definitions of the Caribbean, 1,000 ways to establish limits in a region in what we consider whether what is or not the Caribbean. So those definitions are usually distracting from our objectives and our need to gather together in order to act as a solid region, in order to face those attempts from the imperialism that are trying to dominate our region. So we must focus in what's common, what united us is a challenge Venezuela has, as well as other countries from the Caribbean, from the island Caribbean and the continental Caribbean. And as I said, we had multiple definitions according to geography. We also have an Anglo-speaking, a French-speaking Caribbean. There's also a Dutch-speaking Caribbean in terms of phonetics, especially. And there's also another part of the Caribbean that's Spanish-speaking. So in terms of languages, we have 6 different Caribbean regions. And in terms of geography, we have 2 different Caribbean regions. Uh, some are called the Western Antilles. But we must know what we're actually talking about. This is a region that, in terms of politics, started with colonization. First, the Spanish colonization, and then the other ones that came to sought after these territories. And this is the unity we're looking for, the Latin American and Caribbean unity. When we talk about America, we're talking about the continent from the North Pole to the Fireland in the south, the land of fire in the south. When we talk about Latin America, no matter if that term is correct or not, when we talk about Latin America and the Caribbean, we are discussing about the Latin America Martí talked about. And so we're looking for a Bolivarian alliance of the peoples of our America. And how will we find it? Using common elements. And one of those elements achieved by the Venezuelan government and that differentiates us as a people, it is part of the character of an African people, which is the drums. So through the drums, we are meeting and we must demonstrate that drums are not only playing the skin of the drums go beyond building instruments. The execution of those musical instruments, because we all know that when one of our brothers play the drums, they are transmitting their spirituality and the spirituality of their people. That's what unites us and identifies us. That's the best element to find ourselves in an event called Drums of Alba. That's the best starting point that we have chosen historically, the drums, in order to demonstrate our world that the drums are not only a mere musical instrument, that only black people play the drums, that only African people play the drum. We are demonstrating that the drums are musical instruments that represent struggle, intellectual struggle, spiritual struggle, besides being an element of communication and entertainment. So we are demonstrating the importance of the drum as the linking element of the peoples of our America. So, as I was saying, looking for a common aspect is necessary in order to establish those alliances, march united as a bloc, despite our differences, because we do have differences, other interests, but we must march together in order to face the elements related to imperialism, to colonialism, because it didn't end in the 18th or 19th century. Colonization continued in a
Imperceptibly, because it was a colonization that has as a starting point the intellectual aspect, the spiritual aspect, the ethereal, what we cannot see, what is it is blind to the human eye, mental slavery, enslaved mind, the mental coloniality, the colonialism with respect to the memories that people have. So I want you to listen to these poems. Why? Because I want you to detect in them what occurs in the Caribbean. Because we in the Caribbean, and I say us in the Caribbean because Venezuela is a Caribbean nation of the continental Caribbean. It has waters. It has waters in the Caribbean Sea, and we as Caribbean people, we have that element that you will be able to detect in these poems that I'm going to read, and you will then be able to understand why sometimes we get desperate because we see certain conducts of submission of people that people who surrender vis-a-vis situations that arise and that provokes to explode. On the contrary, you should explode, and that there be insurgency without taking into account elements that you are going to detect in these poems. The first one is called The Lesson by Merle Collins, the author. You think it was any old lesson, an easy lesson? It was a deep lesson, a well taught lesson, a lesson that was carefully learned. I could remember my great grandmommy, brain tired and wandering, walking and talking, mind emptied and filled, bright, retaining information, and skillfully twisted by a sin that, unequaled by Eve's great grandmammy, life proof of the power of the word, talked knowingly of William the Conqueror, who was the fourth son of the Duke of Normandy, and he married Matilda. His children were Roberto, Ricardo, Enrique, Guillermo, and Adela. My grandmother, her mind going backwards, teaching what she knew, chose the friend of the hero of Guillermo the Conqueror and the Lord. My friend is his name, but his friend was not my friend. Grandmother did not remember any Caribbean chief, no Ashanti king. And for Grandma Fedon never existed. Toussaint was a curse, and its heroes were in Europe. Never in the Caribbean, never in Africa, any in Grenada either. Its geography was of the Arctic Ocean and of the Mediterranean, spoke of Nome Sambla, Francis Joseph Lang, and Ispit Berti. And in the Arctic Ocean of Ireland and the Pharaonic Islands belong to Denmark. He spoke like a parrot of Corsica, of Sardinia, Sicily, Malta, the Loman Islands, and the archipelago islands in the Mediterranean Sea. It isn't a story of Anansi, who is a character of African mythology, by the way. No, it is a joke, a serious joke. I would refer to my grandmama and laugh with her and repeat after her until one day I searched on the map and I found something different in the spelling, different of what I thought of. But the geography, which was straight like a carol, like an arrow, focusing towards the Arctic Ocean. Therefore, my blood turned cold. My eyes were fixed in the Arctic Circle, looking Bergen and Franz Joseph Land, looking below the islands, Paroil Islands, in the Straits of Denmark, feeling, without knowing why, the cold pause of the Arctic, thinking of how, by a trick, the mind of grandmother knew more of this than of a Grenada, than a Caribbean that did not exist. A star left its orbit when the world, for a moment, eternal moment, was went a little bit too fast to teach the slaves and their children and the children of their children to know and to live so for our world. No, no new creation, only one part of the great infinite old Arctic and Mediterranean as well. And now we, aware and anti-colonially aware and understanding now all of this that I have said and something more, we appreciate the memory of my grandmother, and we want to invite Guillermo to come and to venerate our martyrs. And Toussaint says this, Mershau also, Tor Orion, Dask, Transporter, excuse my English, and other countries, and the principles for which they struggled for in the past. We will see and look at the admiration of William when he finds humbly when he meets with Fidel, with a spirit that he greets the PRG, which is the Revolutionary Government of the People of Grenada, founded by Maurice Bishop. We will get close even more to look while Morgan the pirate hides his loot, and we start to prepare our budget. With this principle in mind, we will write again the books, our history books. Remember Bob Marley? Remember Bob Marley? We have to fulfill the book. We have to continue to write in the book to complete the books. We have to complete the books. We will write again the books of history. We'll rewrite history. We will place William in the last page of that history book. We will make of Morgan a note, a marginal note at the footnote, and the grandmothers of the future will know of the Arctic Ocean, but they will know more about the Caribbean Sea, of the Atlantic Ocean. We will commemorate with pride the masters to our people in such a way that goodbye, William, go. Why don't we leave with a fresh wind? Welcome, Fedo. This is your home. This is your house. This is your home. Now, in this poem that I just read, there is much more than just it speaks of intellectuality in of the Caribbean. There are artists in the Caribbean as well as intellectuals launching that cry, explaining sometimes the lack of action taken that is evident. But there is a maroonness in our mind that tries to transmit to the peoples that need of us to unite, to acknowledge each other as a region, as one, that need to fine tune us, to adapt and to work together for a knowledge, common collective knowledge that will permit us to emancipate us, to because even though it is true that in examples that show us that sometimes we go backwards because Maurice Bishop, for example, died, had a horrible death, shall we say. We have the liberators of Africa, which all of them were dead, who died terribly, terrible deaths. But here there was a time when the intellectuals of the Caribbean area, they lifted their hand in upheaval, and so strong did they lift it that there was such a strong reaction by the empire or the empires against them because they said no more. There was a time also when we listened to Marcus Garvey speaking of Pan-Africanism and to unite that we unite in the Caribbean as Africans that we are, because Marcus Garvey spoke of Africa for the Africans who are in Africa and also are outside of Africa. That is, that all of us, we are the Afro descendants here. For Marcos Garvey, we were Africans. We are Africans just the same. We just don't live there. That was his point for us to unite. That was our connection with Africa. It is what we wanted to bring here to Africa. We brought the drums, and the mine was brought from Africa to the Caribbean, and we can reconstruct it here in these lands with the materials that we have here, with the trees that we have here, with the wood that nature gives us, that these lands gives us, and we created drums as a communication element. It is not just wood there that has been covered with the skin, and it is more than that. The drum is more than what we think, than what we see visibly. It's a means of communication. And those poems, and I have to read the other poem, but anyways, I have to afterwards give the floor to someone else. But this is like a cry of faith, of hope, of insurgency, of Caribbean insurgency that sometimes we can't perceive because we are more accustomed to what we see, what is palpable around us. But there is a Caribbean intellectuality that exists that at a given time stood up, but it received such blows that were so resounding blows. For example, the death of Walter Roney was horrible, what they did to this man. So it takes away the wings to anyone. That means everyone feels downturned, feels, and it was not only Walter Roney. There are others. There were deaths by suspicious deaths that were brutal deaths that occurred due to that flooded the Caribbean from the moment when when people started became started the upheaval against that is the insurgency. So there are other ways nowadays. Today we're searching for other ways today also, and they also put us in danger to, and they're always looking at us. They're always seeing what we do. They're also financing what for, and what's the reason for financing so that we revolt. No, in order to dominate us, to dominate our knowledge, to conduct knowledge, to place knowledge, to see what are the terms with which you get financing or they don't give it, so they're telling us things. So we have to reinvent ourselves today in the 21st century. Then we have to reinvent new ways that are not the same as in the 60s or in the 70s, or the Black Power, or that of, or the New World movement. No, we have to reinvent ourselves, reinvent new ways, nor of the blackness of Caribbean that have those elements and those processes as a background, because the roots, we cannot lose our roots or forget about our roots, and we have to therefore create or construct new ways to face the ogres that impede that there be unity of the peoples of our America. Thank you. Very well said. Yes. An applause for our master, Beatriz. I feel in this, in order to geographically place us, We are united by our language, and it's beautiful the poem that she recited. And I recommend also for you to speak, to continue to keep in dialogue with her, and in this empowerment for our development, that we read this book here of her that she is author of, called Venezuela Against Racism: Quick Guide to Face Racism and Racial Discrimination. You can find this in all of the stationery stores of the South. This is our knowledge. This is here in this book, this here and now. You can acquire it. You can search for it. You can find it, and all of you to go to the stationery bookstores and buy them. Thank you very much. And now we will continue with Cleve Scott, who is historian, researcher of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and in his development, he will be accompanied by our brothers Drum Foundation. So an applause then, please, for our sister from our brother, excuse me, from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Cleve Scott.
If I have a wing like a dove, if I have a wing like a dove, I will fly, fly away, fly away, and be at rest. If I have a wing like a dove, if I have a wing like a dove, I will fly, fly away, fly away, and be at rest. Rocco, Rockoli, Rocco, Rockoli, Zion children, Rocco, Zion children, Rocco. Jordan road, Jordan road. I want to go to heaven when I die, just to hear River Jordan. Jordan road, Jordan road. I want to go to heaven when I die, just to hear River Jordan. They asking me, where you from? They asking me, which part you come from? Well, I wasn't born in America. I wasn't born in Australia. I am a, I am a, I am a, home of the blessed, gem of the Antilles, rainbow country, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I am a, I am a, I am a, Down a valley so, down a valley so, down a valley so, down a valley so. It was down a valley so, where them carry the Garafuna people. Down a valley so, down a valley so, down a valley so, down a valley so, down a valley so. This was the cry of our forefathers. This was the cry of our ancestors. Freedom! 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 They try to run. They try to hide. With shackle on their feet, they can't get so far. And they cry, freedom! 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 Come down, freedom! Come down, freedom! Come down, freedom! Come down, freedom! 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 Give me back me gold! Give me back me gold! Give me back me gold! Them left, but them come from in our land. Carry away the Garafunas. Take our land. Give me back me gold. 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 $1 melon.
No, no, no. Bueno, buenos días. Buenos días.
figment from the imagination, being part of the Caribbean, being the sixth region of the African continent, being from an island or continent, having a diversity of languages, having the permanent capacity of creating. And in that creating ourselves, it is important to write our stories from the drums as a meeting point that reaches intellectual development, and so our knowledge is in a constant movement and change. Once we achieve the true eradication of racism and we have a fully anti colonial region to actually be sovereign, independent, that's one of the great lessons I think we can take from this meeting of ALBA. Continue moving forward as a block. As you masters said, achieving unity is a great challenge. A challenge that we in these 4 days of the drums of ALBA we have successfully achieved to have a true unity with our exchanges. And the drum should be one of the first elements to continue looking for common points and meeting and common values that would allow us to have a sovereign and permanent unity. So let's give an applause to all of us to continue waving the flag of ALBA, because in ALBA we have been able to embrace the island Caribbean, the continental Caribbean, and our Latin America. With these words, we close the block of conferences. Let's give an applause to ALBA-TCP. Let's beat the drums to celebrate ALBA, and once we finish here, let's go to Plaza Bolivar, to Bolivar Square, because we will have a few presentations in the center area of Caracas. So we will wait you there for the musical shows. Thank you very much. Sorry, we would like to directly go to Bolivar Square. You can take some coffee, but then we will go to the shows because Ernesto Villegas is going to convey a few greetings to all the artists and cultural experts, because Minister Villegas is coming. He's the Minister of Culture in Venezuela.